Hello and welcome. Xolo here with another V-Rising video, and today I'll be going over 5 easy ways to improve your V-Rising castle design. In this video, I'll be going over a few scenarios and what you can change about them to make them look better. Just so you know, in the description of this video, I'll be leaving a link to these examples over on my Ko-Fi where you can download them for free. Alright, now let's get started. For this first example, we're going to be taking a look at a staircase. So let's say we walk into this building here and we have a pretty ordinary, plain looking staircase. One of the things I think we could do to instantly improve this would be to add some kind of window or something along the side. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, oh, well, I've seen that before. I've put windows here before. Yeah, sure, but maybe there's a type of window, and I'm using quotes here that you can't see my hands, that we're going to be using that's not usually what we see. So in this case, I'm actually going to put some door frames across here and kind of open up the area on top here. So as we walk through, you know, it definitely has more of an airy feel to it, but the problem is, of course, we need some kind of windows or something in order to kind of keep us safe. We could add something like this, or we could use something like a prison block of some kind. So for example, something like these bars tend to work really well for these as well. But my personal favorite is to use the Plague Sanctum Gate. So this is the doors that come with the Sinister Evolution pack, I believe it is. It's the Gloomrot theme pack, which is a paid-for DLC. But if you don't have that, let's say you don't have the DLC, I would recommend using something like the barrier entrance block for the the one that kind of has like the bars going up and down. I like these as well as a substitute. But if we use the Plague Sanctum Gate, we can put them up here. Just kind of line this whole area up top here. I think honestly this is probably one of the best ways you can just instantly improve the way the staircase looks when you're going up the stairs. So like across the side, immediately when I walk up, when we look side to side here, there's a lot of light coming in from the outside. We can see through here, so we can see things happening on the outside. So if you happen to build a castle that's like on a cliff or something, and there's a really nice view on the other side away from the staircase, like let's say we have a really nice view going this way or something, this kind of layout would be really ideal. The reason why I bring up the doors is because when we use different types of windows and things, it kind of closes out the spot. So for example, if I were to take this and turn it into a castle window wall, which is more common, you would see things like this more common. In most castles, you might see something like this, where, you know, the window is there, but there's not really a lot of light coming through here. You can't really see through this particular window. And the same thing goes for stuff like some of these colored windows like these. You can't really see through them, but you can see through things like this, which are the more clear ones. And though I will admit it does look nice when you're going up the stairs, I think that having a much larger fake window, if that makes sense, kind of opens up a more almost I don't want to say impressive, but more of a this open space kind of area. Like just walking through, it feels a lot bigger when you're going up the stairs, and the windows aren't just the size of like regular windows. And the cool thing is you can't really open these because the bottom part or the middle part of the staircase here is too low for people to open it. So it really does serve as a window, which is kind of cool. Or more like a closed window. Even this one right here, I can't really seem to do unless I jump and try to, you know, get the perfect angle to open it or something. I mean, and even then, I can't seem to open it while jumping. So it's one of those things where it's such a minor thing to add, but man, does it look so different when you're going up the stairs and you're seeing things like that. I've seen a lot of castles that have different kinds of setups like this. So something else you could use, like I said earlier, the prison blocks could be a good substitute for this if you're just using, you know, base game stuff. And, you know, even just walking up through here, you know, you definitely have that more outdoorsy feel. And then, of course, the one I like more, which is this barrier entrance block. It definitely also kind of has that more spacious feel going up the stairs. That way the stairs don't feel as claustrophobic. And the cool thing is you can also put, if you go to the top of the staircase, like let's say I were to put a tile here and stand up top, I could put a, I could definitely put like a chandelier here in the staircase to just be able to kind of create more of a interesting visual feel. So like I could stand like right here, for example, and then just add like a nice light or something. But if I were using these, you know, the light does reflect off of the glass as well. So I think that this is probably one of the best doors to use for the staircase wraparound. And it just instantly makes the castle look so much nicer. And of course from the outside, there's also a neat look. So if I were to go kind of airborne here, I can take a look from the sky. And just wrapping around, it just looks more visually interesting from the outside of your castle, because these are much larger than just regular windows. And even then, if I back away, I can even see the chandelier kind of glowing in there. So it's really nice, and I think that more people should try this out. This is a very simple solution to kind of getting a more interesting staircase layout without even really decorating or putting anything else in there. So for our second example here, we're actually going to do something kind of different in the same spot. So for our first example, obviously we went up here and kind of messed around with this wraparound. But for our next example, we're going to be kind of working on the bottom of the staircase. So maybe kind of adding a nice little tucked corner here, kind of an L shape is what we're seeing here with the 3 tiles. So I think what we should do is add a fireplace. Now you're probably thinking, a fireplace? Oh my god, that's such a small spot for a fireplace. Well, yes, but you can also put down a fireplace that's really nice and tucked in. And with the fireplace being here, you have a nice cozy spot, which can also open up the opportunity to add like a couch or something else over here. So if I want to go with like this omen sofa, for example, I could push it backward a little bit, not too far. And maybe I want, I don't know, like a green or something for this look. And I could also take a carpet, place it down here. Maybe I want to use something a little bit more, something a little bit more chill. Maybe something a little bit more laid back. Or I could use something that's more circular here, like a more circular rug in this little spot. But if I want, I can place something like this underneath the sofa, kind of leading up into the fireplace. Maybe I want to use like a black carpet instead of the green, just so it's not like a big green blob. And then I could also add in some little things to kind of make this a little bit more of a believable space, if that makes sense. So maybe we don't like the fireplace being seen from the staircase for whatever reason. Like maybe I just want to go up here and not look at this you know, glow from the staircase. So what I could do is I could add in a decoration item here. So I would go to decoration, then furniture, and I would go to the miscellaneous tab and pull out something like this Dignity folding screen. And I can put this folding screen right here in the little nook of the staircase to kind of visually block out this space, while also having a little bit of visual on it. So like you can see the fireplace here a little bit, so you do feel like it's being lived in. And then of course you have your kind of like level of privacy or something here. So if you wanted to add some chairs or something, you could. You can add like a little table or something if you wanted, but in our case, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to add a bookshelf here. So we're going to add maybe this right here, kind of tuck that in right over, and maybe we want to add in another bookshelf, but maybe on the wall. So I could go to decoration, then wall ornaments, and then I can go to the wall hanging shelves, and maybe I want to use this, I guess the Omen triple wall shelf would look really nice with this. I could put it here as well if I really wanted to, or I could put it on the side, but I think on the side makes a little bit more sense in our case. I could also maybe move the bookshelf over slightly Or I could just leave this alone and just put like a vase here. So there's a lot of little things you can add and a lot of little things that can kind of lighten up this area or make it a little bit more visually interesting. So let's say we go in and decide to add some vases here. Maybe I want to go with a noble, or actually the auger vases look pretty nice. So I think I'll go with an auger vase. And we'll put this thing right over here. And maybe we want to also put down a maybe like a nice plant in there. I actually really like using the Dracania Kedarnath plant. I have no idea how to say that, but this plant right here. I love using this thing. Super cool looking plant. It's kind of green with like red tips to it. So if I want to do that, I can, or I could use some other thing like a like the Monsera plant. I call this the money plant. I don't know why. Like my mom calls this the money plant, and I really don't understand it. Someone please explain the lore of the money plant to me. Maybe this is like a superstitious thing. I don't know. But she basically calls it like the money plant, and she said something I think about like if your leaves are like have holes in them, it's like good luck or something. I don't know. Someone explain it to me. I don't understand it. I'm not very superstitious myself, so someone explain that to me. But yeah, we have a nice little look here. So we have our plant, we have the bookshelf. It already looks really cozy, and having this kind of closed off has done a great job for just visual variety. And then of course, maybe we want to add another one of these vases. We can add it right over here. We'll add maybe another money plant in this case. I really like the money plant. That's what I call it anyway. And maybe we also want to add something a little bit different, like maybe a storage space or something. So I could go for something like a maybe like a secretaire or bureau or something. So maybe this bureau could be pretty cool. I could put this like right over here. I could kind of tuck it over here to the side. So if I have to put something here, I can, or you can also place this like right here just to kind of create a little bit of more visual variety. And if I wanted to add maybe some wall ornaments, I could add some more in the form of maybe some draperies or something. So I think in this case, I'm going to use the orderly wall draperies, and we're going to go with the green. We're gonna put some over here and there. In this case, I almost forgot, I can't put the draperies while also putting the little bookshelf thing, so we're gonna have to leave that alone. But as you can see, it's already 1,000 times better. And of course, you want to make sure you have a nice looking foundation for this. So even something as simple as this could work out. Just in making it look a little bit better, or I can maybe even go for something that has the color I want in it. So for example, if I went with something from the new pack, the Eternal Dominance pack, I need to find it. Where is the but I can add that in, and with the green, now it just kind of works. You know, now you have a little bit of green everywhere, but it's not like overwhelming green. So something like this could be a really, really nice little change you can make. Instead of just having an empty inside part of the staircase, just to make it look a lot nicer in general. So just little things like this could really make a big difference. Like you walk in and boom, all of a sudden, wow, look at this. There's like a sofa here, and oh wow, look, there's a bookcase, and you know, it looks nice and orderly, and there's a lot of really good stuff going on here. You could also maybe even add like some banners on the pillars or something if you want to be extra creative for whatever reason. So I don't tend to use a ton of pillar ornaments, but you can definitely do that here. So if I want to use like the Nightfall flush mounted banner, for example, I could put that here or on the sides or something. You know, I could basically put it wherever I want. But yeah, it's definitely a nice little look there. It definitely adds a little bit of more visual variety. I could also choose to go with a different color. Like if I wanted to go with a black instead of a green, I could do that just to kind of add some depth to the walls so that it's not so like linear and like one-dimensional, if that makes sense. Because I feel like there's that danger of using too much of the same thing over and over. So in this case, I can pull this out, maybe push the vases slightly forward if I want, so that they're not hugging the walls, and it still has the basic look that we're looking for here, with just a lot of nice visual variety elements. So this is just a small example of something else you could possibly do here for like the staircase, and then of course that in combination with this, it just comes all together. It looks so cohesive. You know, you go up and down and it's just like, wow, look at that, you know? So you want your castle to look like it's lived in. And of course you can also, one last thing I would probably add here if I really wanted to, could be something like a small carpet. So I like using these small ones here, and I can put this right over here in the center of the tile if I really wanted to, and boom. Now we have matching carpets. So I probably want to go with a black instead of a green. And then now you can see like a big visual difference between the black and the green here, just kind of sticking out and just kind of looking nice overall. So you can do a lot of different things with this. So I highly recommend messing with different combinations of furniture and stuff, especially in these little corners. You don't want to leave them bare, because the moment you leave them bare, it just kind of looks like an empty castle, and it's not that believable anymore. So something to think about going forward. This next example kind of showcases something that I see all the time whenever I see new builders start building their castles. I think it's just kind of a natural way that we tend to build our flooring and our carpets, and the way that we have the combinations together. I feel like it's pretty natural to want to place every single thing. So like, for example, if I walk through here, you can see that I covered almost the entire floor with just this you know, thinner carpet going around. Now this isn't particularly bad or anything like that, but I do feel like for square rooms like this 4x4 room, we could definitely do better, I think. So maybe what we could do, let's say we want to keep the purple theme. Let me just remove the carpet real quick. All right, so something we're going to do instead is we're going to be using a very different kind of carpet in here. So maybe I want to use something like the ostentatious carpets. Oh my god, that's a mouthful. We can use these carpets, and we can maybe set up a nice layout that maybe isn't as boring. So what I could do is I could tuck this in the corner here. Can tuck one in the corner there. We can do one of these for all four corners so that we have a nice little layout. And then of course, we have lots of other options as far as things we can do. So this is where things get a little complicated or tricky. So now that we have our four corners kind of set up, we kind of have a choice as to what we want to do with the rest. So if I wanted to, I could add more stuff here. And then I could add maybe like a circular carpet right in the center. I believe this would be the center right here. And now we have a little bit more visual variety for the room, but at the same time, this does look a little empty inside. So what we could do is we could add something like this cordial rectangular rug and squeeze it right in between these two things here, which is kind of interesting that it even fits, because a lot of times when you try to put carpets next to each other, it'll like overwrite it if it's too close. But for some reason, this space is just perfect to squeeze in this tiny little carpet, just to add a little bit more visual variety and things. But you know, you don't have to go with this kind of carpet. I'm just kind of showing like some examples of layouts here. So maybe we want to do something like we want to add, you know, maybe these, or we could add maybe something larger like this, like the bigger circles on the sides. Or we can add maybe something even like this toward the center, where we can fit two of these on each side. And it still looks really nice, and we don't have to worry too much about a kind of like a weird look. So if I take this, make the colors match, make it all purple, suddenly, you know, things are kind of working out nicely here. I could remove these side carpets and we can add something else. Like maybe we could add something like this stately rectangular carpet. This one's a good one because this carpet doesn't use that much Well, I mean, it uses the same amount of real estate as the other carpet, but visually it's more simplified. So you can do some more stuff with this. You could also use something like the Nocturnal Opulence Elegant square carpet, for example, and maybe have that in the center and then just change out what's around it. So maybe, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of different varieties of carpet layouts you can use. So you don't want to necessarily only be using you know, just the regular rugs that I showed when we first walked into this room, because then it just kind of becomes redundant in all of your castles and stuff like that, which I'm sure no one really wants to have per se. So it's something to consider. One thing I like to do, or that I've been experimenting with a lot recently, is using different kinds of flooring to simulate carpeted areas versus hardwood floor areas. So in this case, I use the library flooring for this, and what I can do is take the Taylor flooring and maybe use something like this burgundy floor carpet setup, and then I can, actually, I guess I could use the myrtle one. You know what, let's go with the myrtle one this time. And I can just maybe create a little corner here of like a purple square, or maybe over here with like another purple square. And this area here could basically be seen as like, you know, maybe a area where I put like a sofa and some chairs and, you know, maybe some kind of like lounge furniture here. And then over here I could put something a little bit less cozy. Like if I wanted to put like storage or something over here, I could. So yeah, you want to maybe experiment a little bit. Oh, I did not mean to do that. You could experiment a little bit with some of the layouts and things that would maybe be beneficial to you. So even just having something like this where you have a floor that's kind of like shaped like this, and then you have, you know, just a wooden area that's kind of like carved out of it, it still creates a little bit of visual variety. And if you add something like some carpets, like for example, if I use the Nocturnal Opulence round carpet here and you put that in the center, it just creates this really, really nice kind of visual from the above area. So it just looks so nice. I mean, you walk in and it just feels symmetrical, even though you're coming in from like a corner of the room. So I would recommend maybe experimenting with something like that. And for the carpeted areas, like I said, you could just add like some sofas and stuff, or some furnitures, or whatever it is you wish to add. And you know, it's just something to think about. I actually started doing something like this for my library build. I think I'll quickly show you guys kind of like a screenshot of what I'm talking about. But as you can see from this picture, I kind of have carpet behind the desk area, and then in front of the desk area, we just have like a different kind of flooring altogether and a carpet rug. So you kind of have a little bit of variety as far as the flooring there. So you can definitely visually feel like, hey, this area is meant for general, you know, public, and that area is not. So maybe if I wanted to have like a bar or something, I highly recommend you guys go and explore that further. But hopefully this gives you guys a few ideas as to ways you can utilize this. Alright, so for this next example, we're going to kind of walk into a somewhat familiar scenario. So let's say you walk into a long hallway like this, and let's pretend for a second that this is like a continuous hallway that goes all the way down. I actually broke it down into different sections to kind of give you guys like an idea of maybe a way to kind of visually make this more interesting, because without the walls, it just looks like a sliver of carpet kind of doing nothing. But once you add a couple walls here and there, it does kind of create more of a structured space, I guess you could say. But anyway, I wanted to show some examples of things you could do in a really long hallway like this. I've done a guide before on hallways and passageways, so if you haven't seen that already, I highly recommend you go check that out after this video. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. And I think that there's also a lot of opportunities here to do some other different things. So like, for example, like here, let's say the wall is, I don't know. Well, actually, you know what? Let's cut off let's cut off this space here, right? Let's pretend that this is an entire long passageway and it all looks like this, right? Something that you almost always want to have in a long passageway like this is a carpet. The reason why is because when you have your, you check your attributes here, you go to your movement speed, you'll notice that your movement speed does change depending on whether or not you're on carpet. So this does not work with rugs. I've tried it with like different rugs and carpets and things. It doesn't seem to work. I believe it does work on pathways though, like garden paths. All right, so when you go through a hallway like this, you don't want it to look too bland, too plain, like it doesn't really create anything visually interesting, right? What you could do is mess around with different wallpapers, experiment with different things. So in this case, we're going to go with this and pretend that this is like a super, it's a super bright area with like marble statues essentially. And maybe we want to create some kind of visual variety here. We want to create something that maybe kind of stands out a little bit. So we could mess around with castle wall vegetation indoors. I do like this technique because it kind of creates like an immediate distinction between the statues and the background. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a hallway like this where it's like super long and it just has the same statues, or a lot of times I'll see like the variations of the gargoyle statues on both sides and stuff like that, which I mean they look nice, but if you don't have anything to back it up, it looks a little, you know, redundant and not really that visually interesting. So what I like to do is, like, let's say I have like a white background wallpaper like this. I can use something like castle wall vegetation to kind of create a little bit of a, you know, a pop or factor for like the statues in front of it. You can also, I've seen a lot of people use like braziers and things, but we're not going to do that in this example. What we are going to do is we're going to take the foundation, we're going to choose something a little bit different. I could go with something like a carpet like this, right? If I really wanted to. I could go with, you know, tiles that are all the same or maybe a little bit different or something like that, right? But I tend to mix it up a little bit. So in this case, instead of using just a solid red carpet, what I could do is I could use something like this library flooring for the carpet lining, and then just keep a red carpet on the sides so that it's a little bit more visually diverse. All right, so the carpet has its own thing. But now I've created a visual space here between the carpet and this, and it looks like the carpet is a lot less, like it doesn't stand out like a thin stream of carpet. It doesn't really stand out, you know, in a weird way anymore. Because once you add the side carpets, it kind of adds a little bit of depth. Now you have a few layers to your flooring, which is kind of more visually interesting. You could also do something like add a, like you could add like a couch or something, or some chairs or something that maybe you really, really like. So let's say I want to go with, I don't know, maybe I want to go with like a white couch, right? I can put a white couch like right here. And well, actually that couch does not look very white. Let's see how this one looks actually. Oh, it looks kind of gray actually. Well, anyway, it's funny because there is a gray, but the gray looks like that. So I don't know. I guess this is good enough, but I could also take some lighting. So if I wanted to put, you know, pillar lights, I could, or I could go with something like a flying light. So what I would recommend is maybe using something kind of like a chandelier of some kind. They tend to have a lot of really good qualities when it comes to just lighting up a pathway in general. So in this case, I'm going to line it up between the pillars. So this one is not quite in the correct spot, so I'm going to move it over one. All right, so now we're visually aligned with the pillars here. Maybe something we would want to do is take some garden planters and kind of do, you know, maybe variation in heights or something with the planters. So maybe I want to go with like a really tall planter in the center and then go with 2 shorter ones on the side or something like this. And then if I really wanted to, I could add some plants and stuff like that here. I could also add maybe, I don't know, maybe like these little bushes or something, you know, just to kind of create a little bit more visual variety. I could also change out the castle wall vegetation to something like the roses, or if I could use the wisterias, which are pretty cool actually. I don't know what happened there. It just went on the outside. I hate when that happens. Anyway, so yeah, you can experiment a little bit with what you actually want to use. I think the wisteria indoors actually doesn't look that bad. So I think in this case, we're going to go with that. So let's go with wisteria on the walls. All right. And now we have our, you know, different planters kind of standing up behind there, creating a little bit more depth to our build. I could also change it up, maybe push this one back slightly if I want to create kind of like a visual difference here. Well, actually, hold on. I just aligned it. I meant to push it back slightly. So if I want to create a little bit more visual depth, I can from, you know, walking in front of it over here. I could also do something like add a like maybe I want to put down some vases. I could put down a vase here. Maybe I want to go with something like, let's go with the opulent series vase here. There we go. We're going to turn it. Add those in, and then we can add our little plants. I think in this case, I'm going to go with this one. Since it's, you know, green with red tips, kind of following the theme here a little bit with the green and red. So something like this just looks so much cooler than if you're you know, keeping like a solid flooring. So like, for example, if we were to let's say we did want to keep the library flooring, right, initially, look how different this looks compared to if I were to use like a carpet underneath, like the carpet tiles, and just, I mean, it just looks so much better in my opinion. And then let's say I want to kind of repeat this over here, but I want to separate these groups from each other. I could do something like take a, I could take some garden planters and I can use something like a trellis archway. I could use it indoors like this and just kind of place it here, but I'd have to be careful with the placement, because if it's too close to the couch, obviously it's not going to work. But what I could do is I can kind of put them a little bit here, or actually the thin ones don't really, you can't align them well. So maybe I would take like a thicker one and just kind of, you know, throw it here just to kind of make it look like it's connected, or that it's, you know, centered, even though it's not. You'd be able to tell the moment you like kind of walk past it a little bit, but just initially it'll be harder to tell. And then I could just add something like this just to kind of create a little bit of a visual separation between this side and this side. If I wanted to do something different here, I could also add in some rugs. So for example, let's say I don't like the carpet, right? Like the carpet tiles. I could take something like this carpet, and I can add, let's say I want to use a stately rectangular carpet. I can just put it right here, align it with the 2 statues, and then I can add a couch and all that other stuff that I wanted to do. So if you don't like the floor tile carpet looking like this, you could just use a carpet instead to create a very similar effect. But yeah, you have some options. So like, just imagine I put a couch here with all that stuff, then obviously, you know, you have another option there. I could also maybe do something like taking a thinner carpet like this, or a thinner rug, and then just like kind of adding it right here up front. Let's see if I can align this well. I'm having a little trouble aligning it. Oh, there we go. So if I wanted to create, you know, kind of a similar effect but with a thinner carpet, that's definitely an option. And of course, you know, we want to kind of play around with the different carpets and things. So if you notice with this one in particular, it's a little bit more kind of thinned out, so you have a lot more area or surface area here to play around with. So maybe I want to do something a little bit different, and maybe I want to add a couch here as well, but maybe I want to orient the couch differently. So maybe I could take something like this and just kind of put it facing that way, and boom, now suddenly I have a couch here. I can just change the color, you know, move it forward a little bit, and now you have kind of like an entrance couch. So oh, you go through here and now you have a couch that you can sit down on. And the cool thing is that, of course, when you open the door, it doesn't hit the door, it doesn't conflict there, so that's always a nice little thing. You can also maybe add more carpets in general. So let's say we go over to this section, right? Here we go. So I'm gonna, you know, close out this area here. Maybe let's just kind of repair the wallpaper real quick, actually. And maybe we're gonna go with like a purple. Let's go with a purple. All right, so maybe we want to mess around with like a purple carpet. So in this case, we could definitely do something like that. But what I could do instead is I could take castle wall vegetation yet again and maybe put it on the pillars this time instead of the main walls. So if I want to maybe have the walls have, you know, like a fabric color to it, like this purple, for example, I could also add green to the pillars with, you know, ivy. I think ivy is probably one of the better choices for like the pillars, just because it, you know, it's very, like, it has very high coverage compared to the other ones. So like, for example, if I were to go with this one, you know, you can see a lot more of that back wall, like the white wall there. Or if I go with this one, it's really, really obvious. You know, the one with the roses is also pretty good coverage. So I guess I could go with roses instead if I really wanted to. But, you know, of course, that's more of an option. Let's finalize the wallpaper and stuff. So I'm going to go here. Let's see. Wallpapers. I'm going to finalize this wallpaper to just kind of be one single thing. And maybe behind these statues, I want to add something else, but maybe I need to kind of figure out the flooring first. So what I could do is I could go with something like this. Maybe this library flooring. I really like these wooden floorings. They're really cool, but it doesn't really look that good on certain wallpaper backgrounds, so you kind of have to be careful about what you pick. But in this case, we're going to go with this one, and maybe we want to take a carpet. So I'm going to go to decoration, carpets, and then I'm going to pick something. Let's go with this one. And maybe I do want to go with a purple. So I could put this statue kind of in the center here of these. And I can maybe push this here, and if I really want to, I can put like a rug here if I absolutely need to for whatever reason. I can also, you know, kind of create a nice little snug spot here if I really want to. We can squeeze all of our carpets in here, so you can fit quite a bit in here, actually. So we're gonna push that back, put that in here. There we go. And let's just kind of change the colors to purple. So if you really want to create a nice area with a bunch of rugs, you can do something like this as well. You know, so it really depends on what your personal tastes are. I'm just kind of showing some examples of like different combinations of rugs and things you can do. But of course, you know, this one, you know, I'm not using like a bunch of furniture, but that's something to like consider. And then of course for this last area, what I could do is also, like let's say I want to do something a little bit more earthy. So maybe I'll go with something like this brick, and maybe we want to choose a foundation tile like this brick stables flooring for whatever reason, right? And maybe we want to kind of tie in a lot of the other stuff we just did, but maybe slightly differently. So maybe we want something like a some kind of garden structure, so we could put down like a small fountain in between so that we have a little bit of you know, audio stimulation or audible stimulation of some kind, so that you're not just kind of walking through a long creepy hallway and just hearing footsteps, right? And then you have maybe some other stuff you could add. So, well, actually, if we go back to our previous build here, we can add something kind of like these curtains. So if we want to create a little bit more visual variety, you have some really nice looking curtains and you have your purple carpet. So this just kind of, you know, it just kind of plays into this idea of, oh wow, this room is really full. It's very, you know, occupied, it's warm, but there's not like clutter, you know what I mean? And when I say clutter, I mean like objects you can like bump into and things like that. So, you know, just kind of going back to that, I forgot to mention that when I did that one. But coming back to this one, I could add some other items on the wall. Like maybe I want to add in something like these wall hanging flowers, or maybe I want to add in some other random object that could look really nice. But in general, if we want to go for a more earthy look, we can change out our flooring to actually have the grass tiles indoors if we really wanted to. So if I take this and let's say I kind of add in, you know, the grassy floors, you know, maybe it doesn't look that cool now, but when we get some lighting in here, or if we choose to, let's say we want to go with this kind of flooring, right? This gives us an opportunity to just kind of plant a bunch of flowers however we wish, without any real restrictions. So we could do something like that. But this is also like just kind of like a subtle, kind of more of a subtle change. So like, let's say you're going to exit like your long hallway and you're getting close to like, you know, the outdoors or something. You could kind of add like some grass or something to kind of give the idea or the impression that, hey, we're still kind of sort of outside. So it's just something to think about. You know, you don't want to have like a stuffy long hallway with just nothing in it. So, and of course, like I said before, if you want to create like separation between like each section, you could definitely do that. So you can have like, for example, like maybe you want to have like just these walls going through, but you don't want to, you know, actually officially close it off. And let's say, you know, the whole hallway looked like this, or, you know, one of these, that can actually kind of break up the hallway visually. So it doesn't just look like a long hallway with like nothing in it. And I mean, you know, I just hope that like some of this kind of gives you guys some ideas, because I can't tell you how many times I just walk down a hallway like in a castle and there's like maybe a few statues and nothing to really look at. Maybe paintings, you know, I've seen people kind of use paintings everywhere thinking that, you know, oh, if I add something to the wall, you know, that should be enough. But sometimes it's just not, and you kind of need like something else there. So like, for example, this. So yeah, hopefully this kind of inspires some ideas. I know I rambled a little bit on this one, but you know, I feel like this also goes without saying, but you could also take, you know, the time to put down like a teleporter of some kind just to make it through the rest of the hallway. If you have a spare one, that's always a great option. And it looks cool. So whatever works best for you in your castle, obviously you want to use that. But yeah, I'll stop rambling about this one, but hopefully this kind of sparks some ideas. All right, so for this next example, we're actually going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do something outdoors. So a lot of times when we place down our growing plots, there's a big difference between you know, how certain people decide to place things. So like if you have like kind of like a little mini farm, a lot of times you'll see something like these rows of plots, right? These set of 5 rows. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of a comparison here so you guys can see like visually the difference. So let's say we have this, right? That's one option, or we can place them individually. I'm just going to speed this up while you guys are watching. All right, so now that that's done, you can definitely see there's a difference between the left side and the right side. On the left, we used the strips of plots, and on the right, we didn't. So something else to keep in mind that a lot of people don't realize is that you can actually spin these. So Like, let's say I want the plot to be facing a slightly different way. You could definitely do that. You can definitely accomplish that. It doesn't always have to all be like kind of facing the same direction. So you can actually spin these plots around, and I kind of recommend doing that actually, because if you kind of move them around, it looks a little bit more natural, I guess. Like, because if you, so here's the thing, right? Let's say I put down some sunflower seeds, right? Let's say I have these sunflower seeds and I'm setting them all up in a row like this, right? Like maybe I have a couple of rows of sunflower seeds. Now I'm going to plant another couple of rows of sunflower seeds in a little bit of a different way. So this next one here, I'm going to take this and rotate it by 1 every time I place one. Now you're probably wondering, like, what does that actually do, right? Well, it kind of creates a little bit of a fuller look in my opinion. So let's add time. So okay, so if we look at these two different rows of flowers, they're a little bit different from each other in the sense that this one looks more like a cloned set. So if you look here, you know, all of these are facing the exact same direction. You know, they're all kind of in a row, right? Now, with some flowers, it doesn't really matter as much as some other flowers. Like, for example, the morning lilies, I think, are a little bit more obvious when it comes to this kind of stuff. But, you know, with the bottom row here, we've rotated our flowers, so it looks a little bit less uniform. It looks a little bit more organic, even, I would say. You know, instead of having a bunch of flowers just kind of looking a certain way, like look at this one in the middle here. So like, sorry, like when I say in the middle, I mean in the middle of this individual plant. So, you know, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have them all kind of facing the same way. But when we look at this looks like a bunch of sunflowers just kind of organically growing in the ground and doing whatever they want to do. Let's try a different example with a similar example with a different flower. So like, let's say we took something like the morning lilies, right? So morning lilies, you know, you have one stalk that's like really, really tall, and then the other two that are kind of small. You know, that's a good example of one. Another good example, actually, I think an even better example would be something like the bleeding hearts. So like, let's say I want to get my point across, right? So bleeding hearts are super obvious with this. So, you know, let's say I place them all like this, right? This is just a regular row of bleeding hearts. And then over here, we're going to place rotated ones. So we're going to go and rotate them. All right, so you can already see a weird difference between having them all face a certain way like this and having them kind of rotated like that. So let's grow them in and take a look and see what that looks like. So on the left, you can see a very uniform kind of mass of flowers, but on the right, it definitely looks a lot less organized and a lot more random and more organic in my opinion. And I think it also kind of makes the bush look a little bigger. So if you see these, right, like obviously it eats up about, it's about the same amount of space, but when you rotate them, it just kind of makes the bush look a little bit bigger, and I feel like it kind of creates a little bit more of a organic looking bush of flowers in my opinion, as opposed to something that's just like copy paste in a row, right? Like, so you can kind of experiment with this with different flowers. I know this is like kind of like a very simple tip. A lot of people, you know, I'm not gonna say everyone, but a lot of people already know you can rotate the flowers and stuff. But it's just something to kind of consider when you're putting down your flowers into like a new scenario, so that it doesn't look like you just basically set down a lot of the same things over and over and over and over, because if you start rotating them, they look a little bit better. I think the only scenario that doesn't really work with is something kind of like a like the sacred grapes. So the sacred grape seeds, you don't necessarily want them to be all types of weird. But something else to keep in mind too is that notice that on the right hand side we used the individual dirt versus the left hand side, right? Now there's some pros and cons to this. So like, obviously the con is that if you need to remove any of these flowers on the right, it's going to be a lot harder and you'll have to do them all individually. Whereas on the left, you can just kind of remove the rows. Yeah, so just kind of keep that in mind. So like, for example, let's say I want to remove this row. I could remove that entire row in just one click. But if I want to, you know, remove these, I have to do them basically all individually. Like I can remove them at their base, but it's going to take some time, right? And I mean, sometimes it just kind of looks better to do it this way, depending on the situation. So like if you're lining a fence or something, you probably don't want to use something like these large growing plots or the medium ones even. I mean, if you want to make it a little bit easier for yourself, you can do groups of 3, right? But when you get to this corner, so like I'll show an example. So let's say we have this group of 5 and we're at this corner and we're making a turn around the corner with flowers. You know, someone's got to give, right? Or you could just kind of push this back and then just put a single, hold on. Let me get this out of the way. You can put a single plot there and then just kind of, you know, have the corners like this. I think that this looks a lot better than having them kind of compete for the corner, if that makes sense. So like if you're competing for the corner, it looks like this. But then if you put like a single plot in the center, that might be a little bit better for you. But if you're doing like some kind of like weird shapes where you're like lining something that's like very zigzaggy or something like that, obviously you would probably want to go with something like the regular individual plots. So there is use for that. But I just figured it would make sense to kind of show you guys some options and things. But, you know, I think the separation between, you know, the ground and the dirt can vary a lot, and especially depending on the kinds of flooring you're going for. So like let's say we're going with like a darker grass or something, it might not matter as much and you might not be able to tell as much. But if you're using something like a green like this, you can obviously tell that there's a space between the dirt here. So if you want to kind of make it a little bit more visually interesting, you know, maybe do something like adding one in the corner and then just kind of pulling it out. But yeah, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually use the morning lilies for this example. I'm going to put them here and we're going to rotate them. All right. And then we're going to, actually, let's also, kind of just have an individual thing. Alright, so we're going to line the fence up and we're going to use the same flower, but this time we're just going to have it kind of facing a single direction. Alright, so let's grow them both in and see what it looks like. Alright, so in this case, on the left, we have a more kind of cohesive, you know, strip here with just, you know, these kind of large farming strips with like the edge looking pretty good. But on this side, they're all individual, so it looks like you kind of like hand planted each one, because you did. So it does create a little bit of a different look, and of course this one we rotated the flowers and this one we did not. So it's really up to you on how uniform you want these flowers to look, because some people, they really like when the flowers are all facing the same way. I think that's more of a personal preference thing, and other people, you know, sometimes you might like rotate it and stuff. But, you know, if you look at both sides here, you have a big difference with the ground and looking at, you know, how the dirt looks. So if I switch this to like a darker green, for example, it's a lot less obvious. But if you're, you know, kind of going with something like this even, you know, you can kind of tell, oh, look, there's individual things. So, yeah. So my recommendation is that unless you're doing some kind of like complex build, or if you have a personal preference to place these, I would generally, like for time's sake, I would generally kind of discourage going with the individual plots unless you really, really want to, or you like the look or something like that, in most cases. And I think something like this is more than enough to just suffice. So it's really up to you what you want to do, but it's something to kind of think about, because this really does look a lot different than this, and it's kind of it's something to consider in your builds. So I hope that this guide was kind of helpful. I know I rambled a lot. Hopefully I didn't leave too much of that in the final edit, but hopefully this gives them ideas. I was kind of like brainstorming this video for a while, and I was kind of struggling with it because I was like, man, you know, what could I suggest? But I really think that out of all these like things, I think this one right here is probably my favorite. Like just having like a little book nook here with your fireplace, and then of course course, you know, this upward area here with the windows. These are things that I've seen people do before that I really liked in other people's builds, so I can only imagine that this would work really well for most people. You know, same thing with this. Like, this is more of like my own creation here, but you know, using castle wall vegetation indoors is not, you know, necessarily a bad thing, especially when you have all the other things to support it visually. So, what did you think of these tips? Did you find them helpful? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget, you can download these examples for free over at my Ko-Fi. In case you don't know, my name is Xolo Q. I stream 3 times a week on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube, and you can find me on various other social media. I have a ton of V-Rising related content on the channel, including build videos like this one, as well as castle tours and more. If you like this video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, Xolo out.